Christian Gomez was 23 years old when he decapitated his mother on New Year's Eve of 2014. Then he proceeded to dump her head in a trash can for his brother Mario to discover. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to December the 31st. Before we continue with this case, please click on that subscribe button and show some support to my channel. I will really appreciate. Christian lived with his mother in Oldsmar, Florida at 1924 Sheffield Court in a 3-bedroom home. It's not exactly clear what happened to his father. I couldn't find much information on him, but he had an older brother called Mario and a sister called Maria who was named after their mother Maria. Growing up, Christian was described as a very quiet and calm boy, very polite, very respectful. He was very gentle and he loved to play video games. No one ever thought or imagined that in the coming years, Christian would become the stark opposite of who he was as a young boy. It was like a switch turned off in his brain, kind of. So here's what I mean. When Christian turned 18 years old, he began to withdraw into his shell and he almost became a recluse. He didn't want to take care of himself anymore. He was no longer shaving, no longer having his bath, and not even brushing his teeth. He just basically started to neglect himself. Coupled with other disturbing traits that he began to portray, he was then laid off his job. And that was how Christian started behaving very, very strangely. Oftentimes, he would just stand outside his home in the grass and just stare at nothing and talk to himself. From there, he escalated to skinning and burying the family cat. At this point, his behavior was becoming so worrisome for his family, but they just didn't understand how to help him at first. But when Christian began to act very inappropriately towards his younger sister Maria, his mother immediately knew that she had to do something. Christian continuously made advances towards his own sister, who, by the way, was only a teenager. So his mother made sure that he was never left alone with his sister at the house at any point in time. No one trusted Christian or knew how far he could go, so they just didn't want to take chances with him. But did this stop Christian from harassing his sister? Absolutely not. So to be safe, Maria the sister decided to leave home and to go stay with other family members. The elder brother Mario also left home at some point. He moved out of the house and went to live, I think, in Virginia, leaving only his mother Maria to stay with Christian. It's not clear if the absence of his object of target worsened his state of mind, because Christian from here on started getting himself into trouble and more trouble with the law. First, he was arrested for disorderly conduct. Then he was again arrested 2 or 3 other times for resisting arrest. He was becoming very problematic. So the worried mother had to get him help the best way that she knew how. She took him to the hospital and Christian was evaluated. In fact, this was the first time that he would be properly diagnosed. And the results showed that he suffered from severe depression, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia. Now it all makes sense, you know. All the time he used to talk to himself, all the time he was acting very strange, not caring about his personal hygiene. And what he did to his sister was now having a meaning. Not that it was appropriate in any way, don't get it wrong. It just creates an understanding into his mind and into why he was doing certain things. He just wasn't mentally stable. Now, after he was diagnosed, he was prescribed some medication to help manage his condition, but Christian wouldn't take his medicines. He preferred to just lock himself up in his room, and this only made his state of mind worse. His worried mother didn't know how to persuade him to take his medication, so she began to crush them into his food and into his drinks, but it really didn't help much. Christian still kept to himself and locked himself up in his room. When he came out, he would just go straight to the garden to stare at the grass and talk to imaginary beings or talk to the stars and read his Bible, or he would just sit in the living room in the dark all through the night, or he would just play video games. So with much trouble, Maria took Christian to see different doctors so they could at least do something to help him, but none of the visits changed anything. They either changed his medication or they just increased the dosage or they just mixed medication for him. One of the mental health therapists they saw even recommended Christian, trying to socialize. He said that he should socialize them more. Maybe that would be therapeutic. Listen, I am not an expert, but how would meeting up for drinks or socializing be therapeutic for an increasingly withdrawn schizophrenic? I don't understand, but yet I am not an expert. Well, Maria decided to put Kristen in therapy proper with another therapist, of course. At least he was able to open up to this therapist. He told this therapist that he knew his family had him under watch, that they were watching him through the television screen. I don't understand how that is. And he would constantly hear voices in his room coming from under his bed. And that was why he wasn't getting any sleep at night. All he did at night was to check under his bed for whoever was hiding there and talking to him. He would flip over his mattresses multiple times at night when voices accosted him from under his bed, or when he heard what he described as echoes coming from underneath his bed. He didn't say exactly what he was hearing, but Kristen also said that he felt useless and that he thinks he was a liability and a burden to his family, especially his mother Maria, who was so dedicated to making sure that her son was all right. She made sure he never missed any doctor's appointments or appointment with his therapist, and she tried so hard for him to take his medicine. She cleaned up after him, she cooked for him, and just basically, took care of him. Caring for Kristen took over her life so much. She was laid off work because she was always absent from her job, yet she never relented in taking care of her son. One thing though, Maria was very afraid of the unknown. Kristen had once skinned and buried the family cat, So what if Kristen turns violence toward her? She had high hopes of him getting better, but she understood what she was dealing with. So to protect herself, every night she slept with a weapon under her pillow or close by within reach, just in case she needed to defend herself from Kristen. And this wasn't the way to live, but she was a mother, and these are some of the sacrifices that mothers make. She tried to get him involuntarily institutionalized under the Baker's Act, which is Florida's Mental Health Act, but no one paid attention to her, so she just dropped it and she hoped for the best. Now fast forward to 2014, during the Christmas holidays. Mario, the elder brother, and Maria, the sister, came home to visit and to spend the Christmas and New Year celebration with their family. But Kristen, whose mental health woes were increasing at this point, saw nothing good about his siblings' visit. He spent almost the entire time locked up in his room. But on December the 31st, Maria managed to get Kristen out of his room to eat dinner with the siblings. After dinner, Maria, the sister, was dropped off at her job at Little Cedars. I think that's where she worked. And she was dropped off by her mother at around 5 p.m. that evening. That means that only Mario and Kristen were left home for a short period of time. Soon as Maria returned, she began to do some rearrangements and cleaning up, which required her to move some boxes around. So she asked Kristen for help. Mind you, this was not something that she just woke up that day and decided to do. It was said that days prior to that New Year's Eve, she had asked Kristen to help her move the boxes to the attic from the garage of the house, but he acted like he didn't hear her. But on this particular day, when he was told to help move the boxes, he obliged. Now, before this, Mario, the older brother, said that he was sitting in the living room and just reading a book when Kristen joined him. He just sat on the floor in front of him and stared at him for a long time without saying a word. Mario thought it was kind of weird, but it's Kristen with his issues, so he didn't question why he was staring at him so much. Now, when Kristen was asked again to move the boxes, he agreed and left Mario reading the book to go help his mother in the garage. In fact, Mario did say that this last time after staring at him, Kristen was the one who, in fact, asked his mother if she still needed him to help her move the boxes. This is the point where things started getting blurry. Mario, while reading his book, heard some loud sounds like thoughts coming from the garage, but he assumed since his mother and brother were moving boxes from the garage, it wasn't anything to worry about. He would later on say in his disposition, quote, "I heard a thump in the garage and I thought it was the boxes he was bringing down. That's why I didn't put much mind to it. I didn't hear a scream, a yelling, a yelping, anything," end quote. The sounds did stop shortly afterwards. Then a few minutes later, Maria's friend came visiting. I think her name was Veronica Allen. Now, Veronica had made plans with Maria to dye her hair. So when Veronica arrived at the house, she saw Kristen mopping red fluid from the area around the opening of their garage. She just assumed maybe he had spilled some red paint on the garage floor. That was what she was thinking. So she didn't think much of it. She asked of Maria, and Kristen said something that she didn't quite get. She didn't understand. According to her, Kristen's behavior was kind of really odd, considering it was just a simple question that he was asked. Where is your mom? That was all he was asked. Veronica tries to call Maria to let her know she was around, and Kristen was acting strangely, but she didn't pick up her call. So she sent her text messages and the voice notes, but she still didn't respond. So Veronica left the house without knocking or even entering inside. She was very familiar with the family dynamic, so she just assumed maybe there had been another argument or a family dispute. Meanwhile, it's now almost half an hour since Kristen and Maria went to move boxes in the garage, and Mario, who was still in the living room reading his book, thought that it was kind of weird and very strange that the house was so quiet, and he hadn't seen his mother or brother since they went into the garage. He decided to check on, what they were doing in the garage, and to his shock, there was no one in the garage. No Kristen, no his mother. But what he saw next sent shock waves through his entire body. On the garage floor was a pool of red vital body fluids that was unmistakably blood, and by the corner was an axe covered in the same red stains. Then there was this trail that led outside the garage. So instinctively, he just followed the trail to the back, or was it the side of the house where there was refuse bin? And what he saw was not what anyone should see in their entire life. There she was, his mother laying deceased with her head taken off. The head itself was found inside one of the refuse bins later on. Confused and frantic, he began to look around for his brother Kristen, but he was nowhere to be found. He called 911 immediately, and within minutes the police were at the property. They contained the area and they began looking for Kristen immediately. Mario had told the police how volatile his brother was. He also told them about his state of mind, his mental health. He in fact, without a doubt, believed Kristen had committed this gruesome crime. It didn't take long for the sad news to spread. Everyone in the community was now aware that Kristen had attacked and decapitated his own mother. So they were all on the lookout for Kristen. Meanwhile, Kristen had fled the area on a bike after committing the crime. And while he was fleeing, he then approached a group of 4 men who were drinking beer outside their home. They had their garage open and they were seated drinking just a few blocks away from the crime scene. And Kristen asked them if he could, join them or have some beer. They offered him water instead. And when he took it, one of them, who was called Ronald, noticed red stains on his legs and on his ankles. He didn't understand exactly what was going on, but Kristen himself was behaving oddly and strangely. I mean, he was even hiding near the garbage cans when he took that bottle of water from him. So when he saw that there was a police search and sirens began blaring all around, and he heard about the news, he put 2 and 2 together quickly and he called 911 to let them know what he had seen. The police showed up and took statement. Then they searched for Kristen in the area, and just a few blocks away, they found him. At about 8 p.m. that night, he was found riding his bike. He even tried to ride past a cruiser in front of him, but he fell off his bicycle and onto the grass at 1802 Driftfoot Circle. Kristen was taken into custody and he was transported to the station. And now, at the station, authorities wanted to know why and how Kristen did this to his own mother, because it just wasn't making any sense to anybody. Kristen admitted he decapitated Maria and that he had wanted to do it for days now, that he in fact had been planning it for 2 days, if not more. He said from the first day she started asking him to move the boxes from the garage, he knew he wanted her gone. Kristen also said that Mario was home for the holidays and all his mother did was to dote on Mario and neglect him, and that Mario was his mother's favorite son, and for this she deserved what she got. I mean, how twisted can a human mind be? This is a woman who took care of you for years and even lost her job doing it, and for a split second that she needed to attend to your brother who is not always home, you decide she wasn't worthy of living anymore. Well, on how he did it, he said when she asked him that last time to move the boxes while Mario was seated doing nothing in the living room, he quietly went with her to the garage. And when she wasn't looking, he grabbed an axe and swung at her like a baseball bat repeatedly until he her, after which he drags her to the back of the house and dumps the head inside the refuse bin where it was later found. It was said that while narrating all of this, Christian was without emotions. It was almost like he was proud of what he did, like he had achieved something. He tells the police, quote, "I finished her," end quote, as he calmly and in a very creepy way told them what he did with a lot of pride. They were just astonished. After the confession, authorities charged Christian for his crime and he was held without bail. The way he acted was clear he had mental issues, so he was further evaluated and he was found to be unfit to stand trial. So he was placed in a facility where he would receive treatment for the next 3 years. It was said that in the psychiatric hospital he was very violent and beyond control, but after spending some time at the hospital, his condition improved, and after 3 years he was fit to stand trial according to the state. It was at this point he took a deal that would see him in prison for 25 years and an additional 10 years of probation, plus he was expected to undergo further treatment for his mental health. If you factor in the time already served and the possibility of an early release, he will potentially be free in another 20 years or so. And this is a possibility that has left his relatives deeply troubled and terribly frightened. They'll feel as if the state's mental health system let them down before Maria's demise, and now the system is again abandoning Christian in the aftermath of what had happened. They wonder why help was so impossible to find when their family needed it the most, and how incarceration has become the de facto prescription for states criminally insane. Christian's uncle said, quote, "I hate for another person to go through what my family has gone through. It's an injustice. He doesn't need to be in jail. He needs to be in a mental hospital. I wish that he could be sedated forever and not hurt anybody else, because what he did was crazy. Nobody kills their mom and takes her head off. People shoot other people. They stab other people. This was different. This was evil," end quote. What Christian did was described by authorities as one of the most macabre homicides in the entire county. Maria did everything that she could to help her son. She applied to get him help. She got the right medication, took him to the right doctors. Yet, Christian in his twisted mind thought she had favored his older brother because she asked him to stow away boxes instead of asking Mario. Cases like these are very tricky because it has to do with mental health issues. What more could Maria have done to help her son? Just what more? One thing I didn't mention was that just a day prior to the attack on Maria, that's December the 30th, Christian's grandparents had taken him to the doctors, and the doctors had decided he needed a new psychiatrist, and then the very next day, he had cut off Maria's head. They were doing absolutely everything, to help him. Everyone was basically rallying around Christian, except the state, of course. So you see why the family is very angry with the state. Well, that's all for today's case, guys. Let's learn to take our mental health seriously. It's a really big issue where I come from, where no one pays attention to mental health. It's high time we start doing more when it comes to mental health issues. Let's create awareness. Speak up if you or your loved one needs help. You never know who could help. Now, kindly subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up before you go. And thank you so much for watching till the very end. I will see you in the new year. Happy New Year.